Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone, and it's caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
A 43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Galloway drives all the way to the hole, throws it up, got it! Indiana's got their first lead of this contest.
I mean, that's a goddamn Emmy winner right there.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Welcome into another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, December 27, in between Christmas and New Year's. I hope you had a very, very Merry Christmas and welcome back as we off just a couple of days for the break and back at it again here on this midway point of the week. So it's always nice to come back at the midway point. I'd take that deal every day. I hope you're doing well. Welcome aboard, everyone, on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Fred, Larry, Bob, Kevin, everybody jumping in on there. Feel free to do so. If you cannot follow us on radio, great stations like 97.7 The Ref, ESPN in Evansville, always the right call. Up in the region, you've got WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, and over in Fort Wayne, 1380 The Fan, Fort Wayne's only sports station where you can find Caleb and Kenny each morning and following us each day. Don't forget, just keep it tuned right there on 1380 for the Sports Rush. And plenty of coming at you today, a lot to talk about, especially after being off for a few days. Purdue back to number one, but we're going to talk about Florida Atlantic, baby. Congrats to IU football defensive line coach Pat Kuntz. He and his wife just delivered their second child, Axel Kuntz. So I think that we're the first to probably report that. So congratulations to them. But you gotta love that. I love that name. I had a kid that played for me when I was in college and coached. Was coaching high school football, and I nicknamed him Axel. He was a little kid, but a little scrappy, scrawny, and loved it. IU basketball this weekend taking on Kennesaw State as they wrap up their non-con schedule before heading into Big Ten play next week against Nebraska. Will Xavier Johnson play? I expect that he will, but we'll see. We'll see where he is then. IU basketball has shown that they can play with the big boys, but can they get to the point where they can get it over the hump? No pun intended. We'll talk about that. Indiana football, what a start for the Cignetti era. Man, it's just a lot of excitement. We'll talk about all that. Steve Kerr, did you see this in the game? Between the Warriors, Trace Jackson Davis, and Denver? Jokic went to the free throw line, shot, and hit 18 free throws. He called it disgusting. I think that's funny, but it's the truth. Now this cracked me up. They were calling out how the NBA officials are being goaded into calls. And I'm like, wait a minute. These guys are supposed to be professionals. How do you get goaded into calls? Calls that are so evident and obvious to everybody. And I don't care what level it is. I really don't. I don't understand getting goaded into these stupid calls that they make sometimes. When it's obvious, you see it coming. But that's a whole nother discussion we'll get into. Boy, let's see how. Here's something. Okay, this kind of rolls into the AP top 25 right now. Purdue back at the top, of course, for this. I think only the second season in a row, but only the second season ever. I don't think they got up to number one the year before that, but they had not been ranked before, but they've been hanging around that top spot for the last 2 years now. Can they make the run? Can they do it? But the answer to that, yes. Anybody can. Kansas, can Kansas? I don't think they're quite as good as everybody's making them out to be right now. Indiana could have beaten them. Florida A&M did beat them in 2 overtimes. Congratulations, Dusty May. Chatted with him, congratulating him on the big win. He's just calm, cool, and collected as always. Just happy-go-lucky, and I think that is part of his culture. It's just a very, hey, how are you? And it's just everybody's loose and happy. He's got most of the guys back from last season's team. But my question is, how difficult is it for it's not difficult for Indiana at all, because that would be very, very, very un-Indiana-like. But, and this is nothing against Woody, but Woody, obviously, we don't know how long he's going to coach. We do know he is in his, mid-60s. And you look at someone like Dusty May, who is not obviously this was not a one-time thing. This was not a freak occurrence last year, taking that Florida Atlantic team to the Final Four, a Florida Atlantic team made up of guys that nobody else probably wanted, that he was able to put together and keep together and bring back again to play at a very, very high level. They've lost 2 games this year. One was to Bryant, which was a shocker, of course, but that spit happens, right? As they say, spit. I said spit. But their only other loss was to Illinois. I believe that might have been at Madison Square Garden. But so it's not like they're losing to other than that Bryant game, which was just a big-time upset. Early on, they got caught in. But my point being, would the smart thing for Indiana do or be to hire someone like Dusty May this offseason? John Boy, I know that, again,
go ahead.
There's nothing. I'm needing somebody to bounce off of right here, because this is nothing against Woody, but there's that time where he's going to go out. We don't know. I don't know when that's going to be, but you also know that timing is everything. And I'm going to be shocked if Dusty May is still at Florida Atlantic after this coming season. I mean, he's going to have a great season again. He's already.
I get what you're saying. It does make sense. Like, you want to be able to strike gold, while it's available, and I'm not trying to bash Woody either. And I don't think Indiana.
I'm not.
Indiana would not try. Indiana would never prematurely get rid of Mike Woodson unless he was, deserving to be fired. And I'm not just trying to suggest that he should be. But
he's not deserving. He's not deserving to be fired. So I'm not suggesting.
And so, but it does.
I'm suggesting
everything.
Move. I'm suggesting,
and maybe Dusty May's the kind of person who maybe it doesn't matter when the Indiana job would open next. Maybe he would take it regardless. We don't know that.
It's not.
But either way, I agree with you. I think Dusty May will.
But it's not about being able to do things when you want, John. You get in contracted in.
Of course,
where it's difficult to make that move, because
likely, I mean, we've seen what Indiana did to get Kurt Signetti, who doesn't even have ties to the university. I mean, I'm not saying that Indiana would do something like that. Maybe they would again. But if the timing works out, maybe he eventually finds himself in Bloomington. But I would say
right. My next question is
anytime soon. But
my next question is, I thought I'm not gonna. I'll go out on a limb and say I assume that Indiana may have already kind of found the heir apparent, but nothing is ever written in stone. But Dusty May, whenever it is, whether it's now or 3 years from now, Dusty May is making it almost impossible for Indiana not to hire him when that possibility comes around, depending on, outside situations that may prevent that. But if he continues to do what he's doing, he's going to make it next to impossible unless he has been scooped up by someone and locked into a long-term, big-time contract. Let me
go ahead and throw this out there real quick too. And I think a lot of people, and I didn't even realize this until recently, somebody else that I work with was talking about Dusty May as a potential prospect. And what a lot of people don't talk about, and I understand why, is, before his Final Four run, he'd never made the tournament with Florida Atlantic. This is his sixth.
Well, neither had Florida Atlanta. Neither had Florida Atlantic.
He had his first 2 seasons, he won 17 games. His third year, he won 13. The year before, after that, he won 19. And last year, he obviously won 35, went to the Final Four. And then he's primed to have another good season this year. But the thing is, I guess you don't really have any evidence to show what he can do with, a different roster. Because right now, he's bouncing off the same guys that he had last year that he found success with.
Yeah, but these are guys that are not the top 50 recruits. These are guys that he's taken and molded into a team and made a team out of that were not these big time 5-star elite guys. And
yeah, that's true.
You can do that with that kind of talent. What do you do with that kind of talent and elite talent? That's it's questions. It's certainly questions for thought. Just great.
I think the real kicker will be being able to see, first of all, if he continues to have the season that he's supposed to have with Florida Atlantic this year. And then secondly, is he able to put together another good postseason run and not just have a one? Because if not, let's just say he gets bounced out in the first round this year, then you can almost, depending on how the rest of his career goes, it's almost a Tom Crean type of effect, where you only have one good year because you had certain good players. And I guess you got these same players back this year, but
when was the Kansas FAU game?
Did Kansas play FAU?
But yeah, that's the whole thing I'm talking about. They beat.
Kansas. They didn't. Oh, you mean Arizona?
Arizona, rather. I'm sorry.
I was about to say, what are you talking about? No, that was this past weekend, and they beat. I believe they beat Arizona without their one of their most important guys.
Yeah, Arizona was number 2 at the time, right?
Yes.
I keep saying Kansas. I meant Arizona. Purdue number 1. We've got a lot to talk about on the program today, John Boy. What do we have?
We got Dylan Sinn coming up next, and we're also trying to figure out if Coach Griff will be able to join us in the second hour. So a couple of good guests for you today.
Lots to talk about, though. Appreciate everybody being with us and everybody jumping on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. For those that can't follow us on radio, just go to YouTube at Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and you can find us as well. And hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that and the notifications toggle so you don't miss an episode. People like Fred and Las Vegas Larry and Bob from Georgetown, Kevin down at Jeffersonville, Jamie up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Good to see you again, sir. Forrest down in Georgia, Bob down in New Albany, my old haunt. Boy, we should be on WXVW there, Bob. Let's see. How about the Hat Man from Bruton, Alabama? Love to see you on, my friend. Hope you're having a great day and a happy holidays. Dwayne from down in the Evansville area. Philip says most of the FAU roster has another year of eligibility. He could still be at FAU next year. And very good point. Good stuff to talk about. Cheryl Sizemore's on. You know what? And if you are in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore's 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her at Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Fred as well. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Morning, Dylan.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
We're good. Hope you had a good Christmas.
Yeah,
good,
thank
sir.
you very much. I did. I'm good, Jim. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, buddy, thank you. It's always a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah, Jim, you're in a different studio today.
Oh, yeah, you know, the mobile studio.
That's right.
He's he'll be back to his normal location soon.
All right. Where are you today?
Roaming around in parts unknown. I'm still down where I was. I've been in Florida, and the weather has been absolutely horrific.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yes, it has been cold. It has been cloudy. It rained the day before yesterday, nonstop. Yesterday was the first decent day. It potentially looks like today might be a decent, and I mean, like, I think I looked, and the temperature change was only like 9 degrees or less difference between here and home, which I'm like, nice. Couple things. I'll try to keep football and basketball separate. In basketball, all kinds of stuff to talk about, of course. The game coming up, the non-con game, Xavier. I brought up a point in the last segment about Dusty May and Indiana doing the un-Indiana thing and hiring him after this season. I know that would be a home run hire. I know that Indiana.
Well, they're not firing Mike Woodson. There's no point. And they shouldn't fire Mike Woodson.
I'm not suggesting. I'm not suggesting that they do. I was just looking at this as being one of those sports moves, like someone pointed out to me, like the Cubs. I think it was the Cubs just made, because a lot of times it's about timing, and how long can you go? Dusty, I didn't think that he was going to be the next guy. I thought
10 seconds, guys. Here we go.
824-4040, the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by the Chop Shop, home of the Indiana football and men's basketball coaches shows. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. We're in between Christmas and New Year's. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette joins us now. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, Dylan. All the Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Am I leaving any out?
No, I do celebrate Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you as well, Jim, and thank you for having me on.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure. How was your Christmas, by the way? Did Santa Claus come to see you?
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually hosting Christmas with my fiance for the first time. So her parents are in town. We had them over. We had dinner. It was really, really nice. So very excited for that.
You buried the lead there, Dylan, because I did not know you were engaged. Not that I'm usually always in touch with everyone's love life, but congratulations, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm getting married in April, actually in South Bend. So my fiance is a Notre Dame alum. So yeah, we're very excited.
At the grotto, under the Golden Dome,
Yeah,
at the yard line. What are we doing here?
At the Basilica of the Sacred Heart in the church. So yeah, she's always wanted to get married there. Yeah, very excited. And there will of course be photos at the grotto, of course.
Oh well, how could there not be? I mean, wow, that would be. You know what? You may have to send the invites out. We have to do Indiana Sports Beat live there, because that would be. Let me tell you, if you're a sports fan, you have to go to a Notre Dame football game. I don't care what their record is. I don't care what's going. Well, I mean, who they're playing does matter. I'm not going to lie, but they usually are not ever playing, St. Mary's of the Woods. So odds are you're going to have a good game, but it is museum-like. They treat it museum-like. The volunteers, I guess you would call them, that are placed all around the campus. So if you're walking around between the stadium and the grotto or wherever you're going, there's people everywhere. Welcome to Notre Dame. Can I help you? Welcome to Notre Dame. Can I help you? Seriously, to guide you. And everything is open. The Joyce Athletic and Convocation Center is open. Everything is open. It's such a cool environment. I remember taking my daughter a few years ago for a game, and we went just as a fan, which was, I don't get to do that. They were playing Louisville, so we went and watched. And sitting on those bleachers, it's still the same old Notre Dame Stadium in that way. Those stupid 2x6 boards that are the bleacher seats, literally, that are about this wide. About a foot and a half wide. That sucks. It's not comfortable. But and I've said this before, the only thing that really aggravates me with when they did the stadium edition, which that's been, I don't know, 20 years now. I don't know, 15.
In there, yeah.
How on God's green earth, no pun intended, they not leave a cutout in the one end of the stadium so you could still see the touchdown Jesus? Because I recall for a fact when you were in the stadium prior, you could pretty much see the touchdown Jesus even if you were down low. Now you can't see it if you're halfway up the stadium, which you look at a place like Arrowhead Stadium that has the cutouts on each end. How do you not? That's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, how do you not leave that cutout for the touchdown Jesus?
Yeah, it's absolutely iconic. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. But no, if anyone wants to make the pilgrimage, my wedding is the same day as the Notre Dame spring game. So if anyone wants to go and crash the wedding, you might be able to kind of charge in and bang on the door.
Alter the times?
Well, that's the thing, is that the spring game is at noon and my wedding is at 1:00. So, you want to show up. You see the first half.
So yeah, it's very, you know what? Hey, don't be surprised to see me and John showing up.
We're gonna place security outside the door and tell them to look for suspicious characters like you.
Well, that's why I'm gonna have John at the front, and I'm gonna. Lots gone on over the last week or so, Dustin. Basketball, of course, the topsy-turvy, the AP top 25. The only thing that's been solid is Purdue back at the top at number 1, which now it's going to be, you get into Big Ten play, you never know. They're not going to go undefeated. Somebody's going to knock them off. It's just too difficult now with all these road games. Even playing at Nebraska for Indiana, I expect is going to be difficult because they've been playing a lot better. Conference games are just more difficult. It's different. It's a different style. Why are conference games inherently more difficult than your typical preseason game, besides it being against Kennesaw State or someone like that? I don't mean that, but with all things being equal, when it's a conference game, you fight a little harder. You're either at their place or at your place, and it matters for what you're fighting for.
No, absolutely. I mean, and we've already seen Purdue lose a conference game. I have to keep reminding people that are unhappy with the way Indiana has played this year that for right now, Indiana is in front of Purdue in the Big Ten standings. So don't forget that. I will say that part of the reason that you play better in conference or play differently in conference play is because you know the opponent so well, right? These coaches have gone against each other year after year after year. They know each other's tendencies. They know the other team's sets inside and out for the most part. They know how to prepare for a team, and they know what their strengths and weaknesses are. So it's kind of like the playoffs in the NBA where you play a 7-game series. By the end of the series, everyone knows each other's sets. So it's basically just who can execute the best, who can make the most individual plays, and who can play the hardest. That's what it comes down to is those three things in every conference game. And some nights you're just not going to be like, just over a 20-game conference schedule, there are going to be nights where a team is just not going to put its best effort on the court. That's just kind of human nature. You could be the best team in the country and a team that has great veteran leadership, and every once in a while, you're just going to put a stinker up there. That's just kind of how it works. And so, yeah, I don't think Purdue – obviously, Purdue is not going to go 20-0 in Big Ten play because they've already lost one. I don't think they're going to go 19-1 in Big Ten play. They went 15-5 last year. My guess is – and the conference is not as good as it was last year, and Purdue is better than it was last year. So I don't think something like 16-4 is out of the question. I think that would be plenty to win the Big Ten title. I do expect them to win the Big Ten title. I don't think anyone is particularly close. Illinois, maybe. But other than that, I think that they'll probably cruise to it. And the question then is how many wins is it going to take in the Big Ten for Purdue to get a number 1 seed? Because their non-conference record is so good in terms of just the teams they've beaten, but the Big Ten is so rough that I do wonder if 16-4 would be enough to get them a 1 seed or whether that would knock them down to the 2 line, depending on who they lose to.
Well, the fact that they've already beaten Arizona.
You'd like to think that all those non-conference wins would matter, right? Arizona, Tennessee, Marquette, Gonzaga. Yeah. You think those would matter? Alabama.
They will, and Purdue is going to have to back its way out of a number 1 seed. And rare is it that you can say that as a team this early in the season, but the way we have seen things go, the way the conference is lining up to be, like you said, they would literally have to back themselves out of a number 1 seed, and it would take 5 losses or more for that to happen. I think you're not going to get dinged for losing at Indiana. You're not going to get dinged for losing, at Illinois, at Michigan State, and you might
Ohio State. Ohio State's a good team.
Yeah. You're not going to get, unless you, I don't know, go on a 3-game losing streak or something that really bumps you down in the rankings at the wrong time. It's about timing, really. I mean, as long as they stay, what they are, just kind of, you lose one here and there, it's not going to kill you. For them, at least, I don't think, because they're just looked at as the best team or the most. No, I can't even say that. There's no unbeatable teams. That's the great thing about college basketball today.
Oh, yeah.
There's
absolutely
no team that we look at and say, oh, man, I don't know. Everybody's beatable. Everybody's beatable. And the team, and as soon as you think somebody is up there, as soon as you think that, well, I don't know, man, Arizona's look like they're boom. Psh, Florida Atlantic puts a big old needle in Arizona's balloon. How about what Dusty May has done at Florida Atlantic? He did it last year. Last year he was the darling. Florida Atlantic was the darling. They go to the Final Four. They've got a roster full of guys that probably would not have been recruited, obviously weren't recruited by any of these other big time programs. And yet here they are right back at it, doing the same thing again.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It's really, really impressive what he's done. And it's more impressive because they took an early season loss to Bryant. A sub 200 Ken Palm, just not a good team, quite frankly. And
just a bad loss. Now that's a bad loss.
It's a bad loss. Absolutely. And it will probably, that's the type of loss that knocks you down a seed line essentially come NCAA tournament time. So if they would have been a 4,
the Arizona win nullifies that.
Right. And so basically you have that loss, and it's kind of like, oh man, were we overrated at the start of the season? You start asking those questions in that locker room, unless you have a really solid locker room culture, unless you know that you're good and no one's questioning it. And you're like, hey guys, we had a bad night, but it's fine. We know how good we are. And so they've gone out since then, and all they've done is beat Illinois and beat Arizona. Like Didn't they
lose to Illinois?
Got that right, didn't I? Florida Atlantic beat Illinois.
No, that's one of their only.
They lost Illinois. I apologize. They lost Illinois, but they did beat. Yes, and so they beat Arizona. And
now Arizona's lost back-to-back games now to Purdue and Florida Atlantic.
Well, no,
maybe not.
Arizona actually won a game against Alabama. Yeah. They won a game against Alabama in between there, which is actually they've played 3 straight high-level games. They lost to Purdue. They beat Alabama, and then they lost to FAU. And I mean, it's not like they were undefeated before that, so that obviously you don't want to lose games. But all 3 of those games they played.
None of those.
They played relatively well. I will say that they had to go to a zone defense against Purdue to avoid getting run off the floor. That was the best Purdue has played this season, was that stretch from about midway through the first half to midway or a little before in the second half, that 15 to 20 minute stretch when there was a tie game against Arizona early in that game, and they just ran away with it. They were up by 15 points, and they were about to run Arizona out of the gym until Arizona went to a zone, kind of like a 3-2 matchup zone that Purdue hadn't seen before or didn't expect Arizona to run, and they kind of got back in it with some steals and some fast break opportunities. But no, I mean, that's 3 straight games for Arizona. I mean, and that's what you do when and Matt Painter says this all the time, is when you have a good team and you know you have a good team, you go out and schedule like you have a good team, right? And Purdue has done that, Arizona has done that, and Florida Atlantic has done that. Florida Atlantic put together a really nice non-conference schedule this year to kind of challenge itself, because I think Dusty May knew, hey, we went to the Final Four last year, that's great, but we also have a lot of these guys back, and we could do something again. We're not going to be content with one run to the Final Four and say, oh well, we did our job, this has never been done here before. We're going to try to do it again, and we're going to schedule in such a way that suggests that we're serious about doing that, and they have. And yeah, they didn't win against Illinois. It was a good win for. Quite frankly, that's a good win for Illinois. That's a good win for the Big Ten. The Big Ten needed that when it happened, because they had not won many non-conference games this year against good teams outside of Purdue. But basically, what you're hanging your hat on if you're the Big Ten is the Purdue wins, that Illinois victory over FAU, and then the Michigan State thrashing of Baylor. But no, I mean, Florida Atlantic is scheduled like they know they're a good team. They were able to bounce back from that the bye game loss and say, no, we know we're good. We're going to go out and prove it. And they've done that. Now all you got to do is not stumble in conference play, and you're going to be right back where you were with a chance to make noise in March.
Yeah, Baylor dropped 7 spots, and I almost want to say only dropped 7 spots, because they got beat like they were an NAIA team. I'm like, wow, how does that happen? But
and then lost again to Duke right after that.
So how do they only drop?
They've lost 2 in a row now, I believe.
Yeah.
They dropped 7 spots last week, and then they dropped 7. Duke is a ranked team, although I'm not, as a pollster, I am not as convinced of Duke. I'm a little skeptical of them, quite frankly.
And Michigan State's unranked, so I'm a little surprised they only dropped 7 spots. But you got FAU, who found those 7 spots. That's exactly how many they climbed. They are currently number 7. But speaking of Arizona, they don't move. They stay at the number 4 spot. But that's because this was a quality loss. I guess you'd say that.
Yeah.
There's Q1 wins, there's Q1 losses, but there are no Q1 almosts. I coined that phrase. Forget when Indiana almost beat Kansas. But speaking of Kansas, they are number 2 now. with just one loss on the season. And then you've got an undefeated Houston team sitting at number three that they got 9 first place votes where Kansas only had 5. Kansas in front of them right now. Houston's on the run, man, with former Indiana coach Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah. I will tell you, one of those first place votes for Houston was me. I voted Houston number 1. I like Purdue. I think they're a very good team. I cover them. Everyone knows that. I think they're a great team, and I do think that they will make noise in the tournament this year. I know that is famous last words, but I do think they will. Houston is great, man. Hey, anyone who has not, watch Houston play basketball. They are. I feel the same way about Houston this year that I did at this time last year about UConn. Now, I did not think that I was going to be as right about UConn as I was, but I was right. And I thought when I watched Houston a couple weeks ago, I looked at them and I was like, oh, this is the best team in the country. They have basically pulverized everyone they've seen, and they're undefeated. And it's been really, really fun to watch. And I know that I'm sure Indiana fans are not particularly happy about us talking about that. But I mean, look, guys got it rolling there. There's no way around that. He has that built into. He has that built into a power right now. Like, I mean, this is like 3 or 4 years in a row that they have been among the best teams in the country during the regular season. Now, it hasn't turned into a whole lot of tournament success, but they have really had a lot of success during the regular season against some really good teams, and it's been fun to watch.
We've got more basketball talk coming up and some football as the first iteration of Curt Cignetti's early signing period has not come to an end by any measure, but the most of it has happened, and it has come with a lot of excitement in Bloomington. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
That's the next Mark Few.
Huh.
Yeah. Plus,
I mean, maybe there are worse places to hang out than.
I was just getting ready to say, here's the thing. Quality of life. It ain't bad living in Boca Raton or wherever he lives. Where is FAU?
And I mean, it is indeed in Boca Raton. I mean, look, if he is going the next time I'm sure he got an extension this offseason, or the next time he does, they are going to give him the key to the city. So it would not be the worst thing in the world for him.
I wonder though.
Now the question is,
I wonder if he would be one of those that has this one caveat in the contract. Indiana.
I do wonder about that too. I mean, we've never found out with Mark Few what it is. I'm sure Mark Few has that in his contract. Maybe I don't know. Maybe if Kansas ever came open again, would he be willing to take the call? I don't know. But yeah, I would be extremely interested to see that contract and see if there's some kind of buyout clause that includes basically the Indiana clause or something like that. Because yeah, he's Indiana guy. There's no way, and you're going to keep hearing about it. There's really no way around that. And I'm sure it stings for Florida Atlantic because like they were the ones that gave him a shot, right? Like this is their time to make a run. This is probably maybe the best 2 seasons there, unless he really does do it Gonzaga, and this is the start of a huge run. These are the 2 best seasons they're going to have in a very long time. And there's something to be said for like just being happy for the Indiana guy who's doing that, right? Like before we kind of start plotting his next step here, yeah, he's done something remarkable at a school that has never done that before, and so. Yeah, he's an Indiana guy, and you're happy for him for doing that too.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go, guys. Plate. But in Bloomington, catering starts with Garnish Catering, serving all of Bloomington and surrounding areas. Garnish Catering is waiting to help make your next event one to remember. Planning a great event shouldn't have to be stressful. Whether we quote you just for catering or a total event package, you can trust that you're making the right choice with Garnish Catering. Visit garnishcatering.com. That's garnishcatering.com. Garnish Catering is a proud partner of WOW Food Group. This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by WOW Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, here on this Wednesday, December 27th, smack dab in the middle of Christmas and New Year. Hope you're having a happy holiday season and that Santa Claus came to see you. What was your favorite gift you got for Christmas?
Me, that's a great question.
Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with me. I forgot to reintroduce you. My apologies.
Yeah, I got I always like sweaters. I am a big sweater guy. So my fiance got
you talk about pullover sweater or like a quarter zip? I'm a quarter zip guy.
I got a couple of both, actually. I wear both of them. I got a pullover from my fiance, which is incredibly comfy, and I'm very excited to wear. So,
well, I just purchased this for myself, which if you're listening on radio, you cannot see, but it is your basic hoodie, except for I don't know that I call that a quarter zip. That's more than an eighth zip, but it's got a little bit of a zip there, which I'm like, I like that.
You got a combination there. Look at that.
The little combo rock in there, a little combo. Not bad.
We are making advances in sweater technology.
Absolutely. The portal still happening out there, by the way, people. Football guys are still in and out, and the dust has settled on the early signing period, but teams are still adding players from the portal.
As our Purdue listeners know only too well.
Well, I was just getting ready to say one of the crown jewels of Purdue's 2022 recruiting class with Nick Skirton, defensive end, sophomore, big man, 240, 6'4", 280. He sounds like a train. But he's a 4-star from Texas. He lived up to his ranking. And 10 sacks, 15 tackles for loss, 50 tackles, 28 quarterback hurries this season for a very marginal Purdue team, marginal at best right now. But, man, he just went into the portal, but expect him to jump to the top of many programs' list. You still have wide receiver Julian Fleming from Ohio State, which a little bit of a surprise there. He's a former 5-star recruit, one of the biggest names left in the portal from the Big Ten. So injuries and NFL-ready talent ahead of him kept him from being more productive. But those guys are leaving, so why would you not stay? I wonder. But maybe they don't have the guy. He doesn't think.
Because they're bringing in 2 more 5-stars. Yeah. Well, they're bringing what the reason he's leaving is because they have. Emeka Ibuka is probably coming back, and then they're bringing in 2 more 5-stars in the class, the current recruiting class, including, by the way, you guys need to learn this name because it is going to be said a lot in the fall. His name is Jeremiah Smith, the number 1 recruit in the entire country in 2024. He is the wide receiver for Ohio State, one of the best wide receiver prospects you are ever going to see. That dude is an absolute monster. Learn the name now. And in addition to him, Mylan Graham, who is up from my way around New Haven, and he is also a 5-star. So Ohio State got 2 5-star recruits in the class right now. And so, Julian Fleming has basically been recruited over. The rumor is that he's headed to Penn State, but he is not committed there yet. So we'll see. But some other teams, including Nebraska, trying to get in on him. We'll see.
Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State has been kind of tabbed as the leader in that, but it's a question of are they going to close the deal? So we will see. But that's the portal saga.
Malik Carr from Michigan State. a tight end, big 6'6", 260 pounder junior. You know, the one thing that I don't recall Indiana picking up was a tight end. Now I know that
was
someone went in the portal, Steinfeld, I believe.
Yeah, Steinfeld. Yep.
But did he stay?
He is not. I don't believe he's gone anywhere yet. But Indiana did pick up a tight end. That was one of their 7 Christmas Eve signings from James Madison. Was a first team All Sun Belt tight end, Zach Horton. Although he is not much of a pass catching tight end. He had 6 touchdown catches this year, so he's not allergic to catching the ball, but he is more of a I'm going to pave over you as a blocker tight end. He is that kind of guy where he gets on the edge and he's just going to out physical anyone he sees. So yeah, Zach Horton, first team All Sun Belt guy. Malik Carr is an interesting case because he is transferring from Michigan State, but he started at Purdue. If you'll recall, there was the rumor or the reporting was that he had wanted to play basketball in college as well. And I don't think Matt Painter really had a use for him. And so he ended up playing at Michigan State and kind of going into some practices with Tom Izzo as well. So there was part of that. I remember I went to a spring practice at Purdue when he arrived. It was pretty obvious that he was a special kind of athlete. Now, the knock on him at Michigan State was that he never really was a great blocker. So maybe he's a good pass catcher and not a great blocker, and Zach Horton is a great blocker and a moderately successful pass catcher. So we'll maybe you get both of those and you kind of combine them into one mega tight end.
Absolutely. Jalen Lucas still available, and you know it seems like he would fit into Kurt Cignetti's offense quite nicely. But you know what? That's something for Kurt Cignetti, obviously, to decide. And the fact that if he doesn't come back, offers I've seen are Cincinnati, Oklahoma State. So it's not like these are not. This is a lateral move to me. Or that would be a lateral move to me. Although I know we're talking about it, you're leaving from Indiana. I'm gonna go with the on the limb and say I think Indiana could end up being a bowl team next year because they could have been a bowl team last year. They had 5 one-score games that they lost. And I think that there could be enough of a difference in what has been brought in personnel-wise, what has been brought in coaching-wise, that makes that difference enough, regardless, to win 6 games at the very least. So I would not be surprised to see Jalen Lucas stay in the fold, but maybe he's gone. I don't know.
No, I mean, Lucas is an interesting case because I guess where do you want him to play, right? Because IU has brought in 3 running backs from the transfer portal, all of whom have been productive at their previous stops and should be expected to play. And they retained Trent Howland out of the portal, who was very good last year. So you have 4 relatively proven running backs in the position room right now. I wonder if Lucas were to come back, would he end up as kind of a slot guy? He does have an offer from Penn State. He also has an offer from Louisville, which, look, he'd be perfect in Jeff Brom's offense. He is exactly the type of guy that Jeff Brom uses better than basically anyone in the country to just like rip off huge plays. So yeah, it would be great for him to come back. He would also thrive at Louisville. He would probably thrive at Penn State. So we'll see. In terms of Indiana's expectations for next year, I do think that those guys that IU got from James Madison on Christmas Eve, those 7 guys, 5 of those guys only have 1 year of eligibility left. And
will they be known as the JMU 7 from now on?
I mean, if they're productive next year, I wouldn't be surprised. Like they're all guys who were huge pieces of JMU's team last year, all Sun Belt guys. And the way they've attacked the portal this year, Indiana is not. I mean, they got a 1 year rental at quarterback, right? They got a lot of these portal guys have 1 year of eligibility left. They're clearly trying to win next year. I think they feel like they have a chance to really build momentum here with a great season in 2024. You win 6, you win 7. You feel like there's something going on here. And I don't think that's impossible either. I mean, you look at the schedule is not that daunting. Quite like we talk as much as we do about the new Big Ten and how tough it's going to be. And most years it will be. 2024 is not the worst of those years. The schedule early in the season, especially, is relatively light. There are winnable games in that schedule. You could start 4, 5, 6-1, and then have Washington come to town, I believe. And you have actually a really big game early in the Curt Cignetti era. Now, you got to go out and win those games.
If you're 6-1 when Washington comes to town, you're playing with house money for the rest of the year.
Absolutely.
I think you will play like you're playing with house money for the rest of the year, which will allow you to take some chances, maybe gamble, and maybe win some big time games. But next year's schedule is basically broken down to 3 segments to me. You've got the non-con portion, which is 3 wins. Those should be 3 automatic wins. You've got Michigan, Ohio State, and Washington, which, okay, let's say those are 3 losses, just because. So there's 3 and 3. You've got 6 games that you only have to win 3 out of in the middle of that. And yes, there are some tough games, but there are also plenty of winnable games. But these are going to be tough games. Nebraska is going to be tough, and it's in Bloomington, but it's going to be, Matt Rule has them on the rise. They're like, I think they're like Indiana. I don't know if they're a step ahead now because he'll have that season, which I think that they are, because you can tell he's getting things in place. It's so wild that you can see that he is moving things in a positive direction where you never saw that with Scott Frost. You never had that feeling. There was a lot of hope, but you never saw that. I see it with Matt Rule, and I'm not in Lincoln. I can see that from here. He is doing things in a way that has his program moving towards winning. Quarterback, all these different things he's doing. And so I'm seeing that with Indiana and JMU, or Indiana and Curt Cignetti, and all he has to do is get to a bowl game in that first year. Everybody says all you ever have to do at Indiana is win 6 bowl. That's going to be okay for a year or 2, but if you're able to do that on a regular basis, that's cool. But you have to be able to compete with the big boys, and every now and then you've got to be able to knock them off. Because that's how it was even when Bill Mallory was at his peak. He did beat Ohio State back-to-back years. He did beat Michigan and Ohio State in the same year, but you have to be able to be competitive with them. Indiana has been competitive with those teams. They beat or they gave Penn State all they wanted this year in Happy Valley. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's the thing is, like, I thought that, like, Indiana's roster is not bereft of talent. It wasn't bereft of talent when Curt Cignetti came in. That was why I thought it was time to move on from Tom Allen this year, was because this was not a 3-9. I said it before. This was not a 3-9 roster that Indiana had this year. They had the talent to actually do something this year, and there was some really poor game management at the end of games that kept them from doing that. And that's why I thought that it was time to move on from Tom Allen. As much as everyone likes Tom Allen, and I do too, I think he's a good guy. But this was a roster that had a chance to really do something this year with guys like Aaron Casey and a bunch of other guys on that offensive line who played very well. They had a chance to do something, and they didn't do it. This was not a 3-9 football team. This should have been a team that at least scared a bowl. And between the Penn State game and then down the stretch of the season, the 3 1-loss games they had, there was no excuse for that. And they didn't get it done, and so you move on. And I think that they actually left a relatively decent base of talent for Curt Cignetti to pull from and build a roster around. And I think they've been able to do it this offseason. I'm sure there will be maybe 1 or 2 more additions from the portal as we go along here. But right now, I don't really see a ton of glaring weaknesses on this team. I think that the talent level is still going to be somewhat below the big boy. That it wasn't going to fix that in one offseason. They might never fix it. But they've got the talent in there where you should be able to win 6 games at the schedule. I think you have games against Northwestern, Maryland, Nebraska, UCLA, Purdue, Michigan State. Those are the 6 that you mentioned that you got to win 3. I don't think it's an impossible task to win 3 if you play well-coached football in those games.
Not at all. That's going to wrap it up for this first hour of Indiana Sports Speed Radio. Cannot thank Dylan enough at the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Make sure you give him a follow, no matter where you are, for coverage of Notre Dame, Purdue, Indiana, up in the Fort Wayne area especially. We thank you, brother, and appreciate you.
Absolutely, Jim. Glad to be on.
We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio, and we're back with that right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you so much, and I will not see you Friday if you're there, but at the next one.
I will see you after the new year. Have a good one, Jim.
See you, Dylan.
You too, buddy. Happy New Year.
All right. Bye, guys. Happy New Year.
See you, brother.
All right.
It's always so funny. Some people seem like they don't know what to do. And then others, like Kravitz, they're the hell out of Dodge immediately.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How do you spell De Niro?
I can't think if it's all one word or not, but it's Deniro. Robert De Niro. What if he was our next guest? Our next guest needs no introduction.
But I'll give you one anyway. Who is our next guest?
It's Coach Griff, but he's not coming on until 10:10.
So we do not
got a couple open ones here.
What the hell is that? I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. You know,
about a little
blue Christmas
without you. Hope the comment section's enjoying this little halftime show.
Blue Christmas without you. Those red lights. And I have a blue Christmas.
All right, here we go. Signature Series house plans. We have several lots available with scenic views of the golf course. Contact Amy Rhoda with Revesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. Thanks a lot for being with us. Hope you're having a wonderful holiday season in between Christmas and the New Year time right now on this Wednesday, December 27. Sports took a little bit of a hiatus, but not much, man. There was something going on constantly. You had bowl games that are being played right now, and many more to come as we are in that time, man. It's about to get good when the good stuff, snakes and sparklers, the good stuff. You don't know that one neither, do you, John Boy?
I remember you mentioning it to Kyle Neddenrip, I believe, during the 4th of July holiday, but I don't know what it has to do with
the good stuff. Snakes and Sparklers. It was from Joe Dirt.
Oh.
He says, "Man, why don't you sell me the good stuff, man? You got a fireworks stand. Oh, you got snakes and sparklers."
Snakes and sparklers.
I do have the good stuff. Snakes and sparklers.
Maybe those are the fireworks they'll use for New Year's Eve in Times Square this year. Snakes and sparklers.
Why? Has there been a cancellation?
Oh no, I was just making a joke because they're superior to the regular fireworks, right?
Oh, of course. Snakes and sparklers, man. That's the good stuff. Fred pointing out the remaining undefeated men's college basketball teams. Ole Miss, where Kylie is, and she says, yes, we're a basketball school now. And, drum roll, please, JMU. I just saw earlier someone had asked a question, and I lost there.
By the way, Ole Miss is coached by the Chris Beard, who was, sort of let go.
That's right.
Truly, but let go from Texas.
I forgot about that.
A lot of people thinking that he may be the potential next head coach at Louisville if Louisville moves on from Kenny Payne.
What do you mean if?
I guess it's more like when. It's just a matter of when. I know they'll move on eventually.
No, not eventually. I don't see the point of doing it during the season, but they've got a lot of stuff going on down there, man, that I don't know about. What's the issue with this one kid that?
Yes, there was a player they brought in. He was
transferring. I'm not transferring.
I don't have all the details lined up right in front of me, but there's a player named Karan Davis who was on the roster, and then he was told at one point a few weeks ago that he's not in trouble. He's still on the team, but he's going to be missing for a few games. They never said why. And then fans noticed that he was sitting in the stands for several home games. And it was later announced by Karan Davis that he was no longer with the team. He didn't specify why. Louisville released an official statement that he was transferring. And then Karan Davis made another post saying that wasn't the case, that he had been kicked off the team. And it was just basically it was a PR nightmare from a Louisville basketball standpoint.
Which is something that they haven't had in years and years.
Yeah, Louisville not been on the right side of several media stories in the past, really since the Rick Pitino era was in its twilight, I guess. But yeah, and then one of the most recent
while he was there, it started while he was there with what's her name,
Karen Cypher.
Yes, what a crazy.
Or are you referring to the Katina Powell stuff? Because that was the stripper.
The first one. No,
yeah, that was Karen Cypher,
where she tries to extort money from him. Then Rick Pitino's strength and conditioning coach starts dating that woman. It was absolutely nuts.
Were you working in local Louisville media at the time when all that was going on?
No, that had already. Well, yes, I guess I was. That was at the end. Actually, no, I think it was just past. When did the Pitino era end?
That's a good question. I think it was so Archie Miller and Chris Mack were hired in the same year, I believe. So whenever
that was 2017, I believe.
I think that was the case.
So yeah, it was right around the time. I remember I was at Churchill Downs. I had gotten up onto the 5th level. I found a like a hospital bracelet. That's what you wear. That's how they identify where you can go.
Yeah.
I found one that got you basically up to the top on the floor. And I'm like, hello. And so I'm up there sitting at this little outside bar, and I order something, and then I turn my right and got this big ring staring at me, and it's Pitino. He's slapping me. Hey, look, I forget who he was talking about, but he goes, these guys, I always got to send them the winners. I think he was sending
that wasn't a bad Patino impression, by the way.
Hey, well, thank you very much. But yeah, just funny things in life that happen.
Anyway, one last bit on the Karan Davis. Apparently, it ended. The most recent thing that happened was there were players on Louisville's team who went and spoke with the athletic director about getting Karan Davis reinstated onto the team.
Say that again.
Being kicked off. So the player who we were talking about earlier, Karan Davis, where all the stuff was surrounding him, there were certain players who were still on the team that had a meeting with Josh Hurd, Louisville's athletic director, that they met with him to talk about getting Karan Davis back on the team after he'd already been kicked off, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's an odd situation, because that shows that's why there's no way Kenny Payne's coming back. He doesn't have control of his team.
No.
You've got a group of guys going and meeting with the athletics director. That's not good. And so then what now? What's the AD going to do? Come have a meeting with you and say, hey, can we get this kid back on the team? So in essence, I don't have a problem with the players standing up for their guy, because I don't know the whole situation. But when you have the ability to do that now, that tells me the coach is not in charge of his team. And that's Kenny Payne seems like such a genuinely nice guy. I think maybe he's too nice to be a head coach.
And from all the things that I've heard, especially in post-game press conferences, he's not adjusted. And I guess he never really had. So he used to be an assistant in Kentucky, for those who don't know. And he carried himself a lot different as an assistant at Kentucky than he does as Louisville's head coach. And one thing he did in between was he was an assistant in the NBA. And he came back into this world of NIL and the transfer portal, and he has done anything but embrace it. He complains about it. He talks about how the kids feel like they're entitled. He blames everything on his players. And so it just doesn't seem like it
was bad timing, I think.
This is bad timing for him to be a head coach at Louisville right now. He really, I don't want to say he's in over.
Sounds like it's bad timing. Sounds like it's bad timing for him to be a college coach, period. College head coach.
He's not really fit for the job. And I think at this point, he'll probably be the head coach till the end of the season. Louisville will save, I think, $2 million if they fire him after March 31st absolutely. Or something like that.
That's an absolute reason to do that. Yeah. Doing it before does nothing. What are you going to do? What's that going to do? Nothing. So yes, I absolutely say you save the $2 million and you do it in March.
You move on.
But that would be interesting. Chris Beard at Louisville. Now, I was going to say in the ACC, but Florida State, Clemson, rumored to be leaving the ACC. We've seen Florida State has starting to go through the legal portion. They're out. They're going to get out of the ACC, man. And then if they do, Clemson's going to, because the current revenues, TV rights, media rights deal is just horrible from a conference standpoint. They are so far behind monetarily what teams in the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be able to make. And they cannot change that. And the fact that ESPN didn't say, hey, all right, let's try to do a little bit of renegotiating here to hold that together. But ESPN doesn't care, I guess, because if you do leave, it's probably going to cost each team in upwards of $100 million. Let's say 3 or 4 teams leave. That's $400 million the conference takes in. Hello. You think you might be able to live on that for a while? I mean, that's a ton of money. And then you've got the teams that are left behind. They're going to have control over that. just like the two teams that Washington State and Oregon State in the Pac-12. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those teams. Where does Florida State go? Big Ten, SEC. It's one of the two. Although the Big 12 has plenty of room, but they don't have the deal that the Big Ten has. And one other thing, the Big Ten has no Florida market. Is that something they want? Are they going to encircle the SEC? Virginia, a potential team leaving the ACC, which they don't offer a lot other than being a great academic institution. From a football standpoint, they suck. I think they're worse off than Indiana is. So Indiana's making that effort to get up to Big Ten worthiness. Boy, Virginia, having a decent basketball program doesn't get you anywhere these days. So I don't know what it would be like for Virginia. North Carolina, they're an attractive program. You've got basketball, of course, and their football program is up and running. So they're going to be attractive. They would have to be very attractive to the SEC, I would think. And it's the same with Duke now. Duke's football program has risen up and become is currently a top 25 team. So it's going to be very interesting, people, to see what happens. Again, it's the change is not done by the time it's all said and done. What are we going to have left? Hey, we've got to take a break. Indiana Sports Beat Radio here. We've got Shannon Griffith coming up a little later. We'll talk more football with Indiana. The Curt Cignetti era is underway and looks to be off to a good start. That much more. Indiana taking on Kennesaw State this Friday. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Yeah, a lot of people thought that Kenny Payne was going to get fired after the Louisville, Kentucky game, but then
it's pointless.
Josh Hurd made a comment to, I think, Eric Crawford.
You could never do that.
Well, he talked to Eric Crawford and mentioned that Kenny Payne will be the head coach going into the new year, so they know he'll at least be around for the beginning of ACC play. And at this point, I think he'll just be around till the end of the season because they had opportunities already to get rid of him, and there was,
Well, it's just stupid. That would be dumb.
The whole thing has just been kind of poorly managed altogether.
Louisville has become
they're in danger if they
of becoming the new Indiana.
Yeah, I told that to Nick the other day. I said, I'm not trying to say Indiana's out of the woods, like they're not like an elite power like just yet, and maybe they won't be under Mike Woodson, but
well, here's
Louisville's
the thing.
in danger of being where Indiana was at the beginning of Tom Crean. I mean, they may already be there, honestly. They kind of already are there in terms of record. They were 4-28 last year, and they're not going to be much better, more than likely this year. They've already surpassed the win total. They have 5 wins, but I mean, I don't know if you've watched Louisville play a game. Watch them play for a half. I guess you watch them play Indiana. It's just they play hard sometimes, but they just fold. They fold whenever a team makes a run.
Let's see.
Very undisciplined team.
And then you add Indiana basketball is still 1 to 2 years away.
From what? Just being consistently good, you think?
Yes.
I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Well, here's we know what they are right now.
Yeah.
They're
in a transition period.
What we don't know is, but see, you shouldn't be in a transition period in the third season.
Well, it's not even about Woodson. It's more like a transition between style of play because now you don't have Trace. I feel like that was kind of inevitable once he was gone.
Well, but you have to be prepared for that. So, but there has not been a different style of play. The style of play is the exact same.
Wild Food Group is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Hank's Pizza Mac. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. We're in between Christmas and New Year's. I hope you're having a happy holiday season. Jim Coyle with you as always here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Finished up with Dylan Sinn a little bit ago. Shannon Griffith coming up in the next segment. We'll talk more college football. A lot of bowl games coming up, man. This is when it gets fun. And actually, the game last night, it was just UNLV and Kansas, I believe, which ended up being closer than it looked like it was going to be. But Kansas's quarterback throws for 449 yards, 6 of his touchdown passes to 2 receivers, and a penalty played Kansas outlasted UNLV 49-36 in the Guarantee Rate Bowl on Tuesday night. Kansas is just a few years removed from being swapping spots with Indiana without the upturn that Indiana had in the 2019 and 2020. They stunk. They were right there, and then all of a sudden they get Lance Leopold, and he came from Buffalo. Said this over and over. At the same time that Nate Oates leaves Buffalo and goes to Alabama basketball. JMU is the new Buffalo. Kurt Cignetti, of course, off to Indiana, but Jayhawks finished this season 9-4 in a tough Big 12 conference, and they end the year winning a bowl game. 9-4, 9 wins. This team, this is a program that is not that far removed. And is this something that Indiana fans can expect? Expect, I don't know is the right word, but I do not think that is any longer out of the question going forward. Of course, Indiana has not played it down under Kurt Cignetti. I understand that. And we're all going off of the hype. But there are certain things that you can see. There's a reason there is so much excitement with fans, because they also can see certain things. They can see the talent that is coming in. They can see the fact that he has a quarterback's room that is full of people that is full of with a veteran quarterback, Rourke from Ohio, who only has 1 season left, but he's got 3 seasons under his belt. He is a veteran. And then you've got all of these unbelievably talented guys that are coming in behind him. Tyler Cherry, Alberto Mendoza. Alberto was with us last week, and I'm going to be honest with you. Dude has a football mind. Let me rephrase. He has a quarterback mind. He thinks like a quarterback right now. And I was very, very impressed with his vernacular, with his approach, with his thought process, and talking to him. And I'm like, can you imagine a guy like that on the freaking bench? And I'm not saying that he's going to be on the bench, but my point being is, if a guy like that is on the bench, you've got talent. And so you've got Alberto, you've got Tyler Cherry. And so, and then next year, who knows? So this is different. This is different. This is not going to be Indiana has a quarterback race every year, and we're going to find out at the first snap of the game. That stuff's over. I fully believe right now, even not knowing Cignetti, that next year the quarterback is going to be named, and this is how it's going to be going into the season. You don't have time for that crap. You got to focus on who you're playing and be ready to take that opponent on with every bit of all the abilities that you have. And I think that's where the focus will be, because winning 6 games is not what is Kurt Cignetti's bar. That's not where he has the bar set. I can guarantee you. Not just going to a bowl game is not what he wants. I win. Google me. You can't make a statement like that and try to go 6-6. And he won't. That's not what he wants more. He wants to shock the college football world. He wants to shock, and I don't mean going to go 12-0 and win the Big Ten, but you go 7-5, you're going to open eyes. You go 8-4, you're going to shake the trees. But more importantly, what that does is the influx of talent that came in, all these guys from JMU that just transferred in that only have 1 season left, the replacements for those guys. Now you're getting that constant influx of talent that want to play for a program. And that's what he is trying to do. It is a complete culture change, but there is a complete culture change. It's not something that he's trying to do. It is what it is. He is a culture change. He is a different culture. So believe you me on that, it is going to be I've said it before, and I don't mean it to be for this to sound bad or whatever, but Indiana's football is going from LEO to go FY. And I mean that in a kind of joking manner, I hope you know, but it's kind of the point. So Drew thinks that Ole Miss is going to lose quickly when they get into conference. I'm not so sure about that, man. It's kind of hard to go undefeated. I mean, I'm sure they don't play everybody, but there had to be a game or 2 or 3 along the way, right? Fred pointing out a great talking IU football in December. Gotta love it. Look, no one has talked IU football in December since 2020 rather, because we were waiting to play in for them to play in a January bowl game. Yeah, that is crazy. The sheer fact that we're talking about Indiana football in December, it is absolutely nuts. But that backs up what I was talking about. I know people are excited. They want to be excited for football, and there is a lot of that, but it's not just that. It's because there are many, many things that are prevalent and visible. Pete pointing out that the Indiana Sports Beat Radio Capital One Bowl Mania update. Jared Wolf is in first place, 16-5. Caleb and Drew back on you. Drew up at the top again, and second at 15-6. ISB's JC at 13-8. Holy moly. Man, what did I miss? That angers me. I haven't looked at that. Let's pull that up. Where is the stupid thing? Oh man, I can't find it. Oh, I wish there we go. Did you get in this, John? And Jimmy Johnson went into the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor.
No, I'm next year. Next year I'll do the bowl pick'ems. That's that I skipped out this year for whatever reason. But I want to go make a suggestion. Whoever does that, I'm sure you do a great job. But we've got to do against the spread. We can't do straight picks. We got to do against the spread. That's the way to go these days.
All right, next year against the spread. I will say I started out 1, 2, 3, 4-0 before my Fresno State Bulldogs let me. Oh, I didn't pick Fresno State. Are you kidding me? Why would you not pick Fresno State? I'm a Fresno State guy. Oh, I picked New Mexico State. Bad pick. Then I got UCLA over. How am I so bad? Right now I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4.
I gotta say, picking bowl games is way harder than it used to be because you have so many players opting out.
9-1.
You have so many players opting out and declaring for the draft. It's tough in bowl season to pick who's going to win.
And I hate that. I was 9-1 at one point, and things turned south when you got to be kidding me. Georgia Tech beat Central Florida 30-17 soundly. That put me at 9-2. Then this was just a pick 'em. Arkansas State, Northern Illinois. I lost that one. 9-3. Then I got Duke, put me at 10-3. Then I was 10-4, 10-5. James Madison. I picked the Dukies. I should have known better. Never, ever pick a team going into a bowl game that had that
lost their head coach.
Not even the head coach. Look at Indiana bowl games in 2019,
Kalen DeBoer.
2020. The whole deal. Both years in a row. I think you had the next year it was Kane Womack.
By the way, while we're talking bowl games, I do have a parlay.
Womack, South Alabama won. Oh my God, they won 59-10. Speaking of
who they face.
That was the Eastern Michigan Eagles.
That's somebody else who will likely be getting a Power 5 job here in the future, maybe this offseason, depending on what else opens up.
Yeah, you'd think. He's done a decent job down there.
I think 2 out of 3 years he's gone to a bowl, if I'm not mistaken.
He's the Southeast kind of guy, so he can be picky. I mean, he can stay where he is. He's probably happy, and so Northwestern.
Real quick, let me share my I want to share my bowl picks for today. I've got a parlay I put together. If you want to ride or die with me, you're welcome to do so. But today I'm taking plus 6.5 North Carolina against West Virginia. They're underdogs. I'm taking Louisville.
This is bowl games?
These are bowl games for today that I'm betting on, and I parlayed 3 together.
North Carolina
first
versus
one,
Virginia?
North Carolina, West Virginia. They're underdogs by 6.5. I'm taking North Carolina to cover that. Second, I'm taking Louisville minus 6.5 against USC. USC is without a plethora of their roster, including Caleb Williams. And I do believe Louisville will be a lot more motivated to win this game than
Where
USC
is this game being
will.
played?
This is the Holiday Bowl in California.
San Diego. Beautiful sunny San Diego.
That's where our friend Rick Bozich is today. That's why he's not
San
coming on the show with
Diego.
us.
San Diego.
Is it really San Diego? Or are you just messing with me?
Well, back in the day it was like
okay.
San Salvador. It was, it's the bastardized now. We have bastardized everything.
Well, there you go.
It was sand.
So I'm taking Louisville minus 6.5, and then I'm also taking Oklahoma State minus 2.5. I can't think of who they're playing right now off the top of my head, but I'll get that for you.
I'd be very interested to know who you're taking Oklahoma State over.
Oklahoma State. Why don't I have that right in front of me? What's today's date? The 27th. Okay, it's Texas A&M, who obviously is going through a coaching change. That's kind of the main reason I'm taking Mike Gundy and the Cowboys.
Wow. Who is their and who's their interim coach even? Because Petrino left to go to Arkansas to become their
I mean, it very well could be Mike Elko. I mean, it's not unheard of. I mean, last year, whenever, or I guess it was last year, Scott Satterfield left Louisville for Cincinnati, which, it's funny, they played each other in a bowl game. Scott Satterfield was the head coach for Cincinnati in their bowl game against Louisville, and they still lost, by the way, even though he knew
North
exactly
Carolina
who he was
is
going up
getting
against.
6.5 points.
They're underdogs, yes.
It's a little surprising. Why is that?
And it may be the tough thing with these bowl games sometimes is a lot of roster differential is what causes these lines to move a bunch. I think that's the only reason that Louisville is even favored in this game against USC.
Are all three of these games today?
Yeah, all these are today. North Carolina, West Virginia is at 2:00, which depending on when you're listening to this, it might be right now. And then we've also got Louisville, USC at 5:30, and then Texas A&M, Oklahoma State at 8:00.
Just a perfect layout. I'm going to ride that with you, my friend. There
you go. Or no, actually, I've got the times backwards. North Carolina, not backwards. I was looking at the way they're formatting it. Louisville, USC's at 8, Texas A&M, Oklahoma State's at 9, and North Carolina, West Virginia's at 5:30. There's a game before that's at 2:00. But anyway, yes. Yeah, thanks for riding with me, Jim. We'll see. We'll update the listeners tomorrow and see how we did.
Well, the West Virginia and North Carolina, they're playing in the Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Oh, it's the mayonnaise bath for the winner right there.
One of my favorite guys I used to listen to on radio and there in Louisville, Terry Miners. I don't know if he still does it, but does he still do his Joe Dean?
I don't think he does. He used to do Joe B. Hall.
Joe Dean.
This
is Joe Dean.
Joe B. Hall was hilarious.
This is Joe Dean, the mayonnaise man. Joe Dean is from New Albany.
If Joe Dean is still around, I'm sure he still does it. But if he's passed away,
Joe Dean
he
is
retires.
Far passed away. But
yeah, he doesn't do Joe Dean anymore.
Joe Dean is a very well-known basketball player at LSU. But he was from New Albany. Joe Dean, the mayonnaise man. You can look up that on Terry Miners. I guarantee you'll find that. But man, he made Joe Hall. Oh man, this is old Joe Hall. How y'all doing? Fantastic. This is your old favorite basketball coach, Joe Beesman Hall. It's not bad. That's pretty good. Close.
Not too bad. No.
To Terry's impersonation of I don't think that I do impersonations very well. But yeah, the Holiday Bowl happening between the USC Trojans and the Louisville Cardinals. 83% of the people have picked the Louisville Cardinals, and I am going to switch it to Louisville. I had it the other way. I've got North Carolina picked. I'm going to leave that the way it is. Thank goodness. And then I'm going to switch to Oklahoma State. So how about them apples?
That's right. Join us if you want a good payout, depending on how much you're wagering. I wagered 10 on it with the payout.
We've got to take a break. Up next, our good friend Shannon Griffith joins us. We'll talk some more football about these bowl games. Indiana basketball coming up this Friday. Kennesaw State. We'll have a lot of that going on tomorrow, previewing that, and Friday as well. Stick with us. We've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Speed Radio. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Good morning, Griff.
Hey, what's going on?
Thanks for joining us on a little schedule flexibility with us.
No problem. I'm glad I checked my email. I wasn't checking it.
Oh, man. All right. Why is only 79% of the people have picked Notre Dame over Oregon State? I'm
sure it has to do with Oregon State not having their head coach anymore.
A bunch of transfers, I think.
Where did he go?
Too. He's Michigan State's new head coach.
Yeah, he's a Michigan State guy. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Don't get me started on this bowl season. Kids opting out.
That.
I don't know if there's a way you can fix it. It sucks.
Here's where I think they got to fix it. number one, these bowl games are going to have to start either paying the top players to be a part of it, or the collectives and NIL, they're going to have to say, if you don't play in the bowl game, you got to pay money back.
That's a good idea.
That's the only way you're going to
ruin the product. It ruins the postseason product if you don't do something like that.
When it goes to 12 teams, when it goes to 12 teams next year, and you're the number 12th team in the playoffs, don't you think they're going to have guys opting out thinking there's no way we're going to beat Alabama, or we're going to beat the number 4th ranked team in the country? You know, I think you're going to have guys that are going to be on that cusp of, well, yeah, we're the 12th team. That's no different than us playing in the Sun Bowl. So,
but you still have it. The thing is, when you're the 12th team, you still have a chance. I think it'd be more so. I think the thing I worry most about with it is with the 12-team playoff. It's not with the playoff itself. It just makes the bowl games, the regular bowl games, even more meaningless than they already are. And they're only meaningless because the players act like they're meaningless.
Right. But see, I disagree with that because why? It is what it is. It is.
Yeah.
You're either playing in a bowl game that you were already playing in, or you're playing in a playoff game. Playoff.
We talking about
playoff? But that's a great. Did you see that commercial?
No.
There's a new commercial. It's hilarious. It is Kevin Hart. I cannot remember who was on his left, but it's AI on his right. And it starts off, it's a Capital One commercial. And I think it's Kevin Hart says, we talk about, I don't even know what he says.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's pretty funny.
And then it's going back and forth. And then it pans over to AI. He goes, we not talking about practice? Oh man, it's great. I'm like,
right, here we go,
love
guys.
Commercials like that.
4-0, the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Wow Food Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday in between Christmas and New Year's, a little special week. Shannon Griffith joined us now from Hoosier Tailgate, and also you can find him filling in in the Sports Rush that comes on right after us on 1380 The Fan there in Fort Wayne. How's it going, my brother?
Great. And did my fill in the last week on Thursday and Friday, so I'm back to the bullpen.
Back to the bullpen. Got to rest that arm, man. Got to rest that arm.
That's right.
Let's see. I was just sitting here. Oh, wow. What are you talking about? You missed my singing earlier. Jim would get booed at a karaoke event for the deaf. Well, I can't. See, I can go two ways there. I could pretend to argue with him, or just rely on the fact that I know I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket with 8 hands.
That's usually the way I go. Me and singing don't agree.
Justin says that beat sounded like his alarm. Well, that'll wake you up.
That's good.
Absolutely. Joe Dierte, I got the reference earlier. I forget what I even said. Oh, Snakes and Sparklers, the good stuff. The good stuff, Snakes and Sparklers. See, my guys, like John, he's not a huge movie guy. He's younger. He doesn't get a lot of my references that I throw out. I'm big.
I've learned to at least recognize some of them, especially the ones from the bicycle movie. What is it, Breaking Away?
Jesus, did you really say that?
I had to throw that in there for you.
Oh boy. Yeah, just like what was this one? Yeah, John Boy, Life's a Garden. Dig it.
That's right. That's a classic movie. How do you not know that one?
John, you've got to watch Joe Dirt.
You've
got to watch Joe Dirt.
You'll appreciate it.
You've got to watch Joe Dirt.
A lot of 80s references there.
There we go. Look, and they crack me up. These stupid little quick lines. You need something to explode? Go boom. I just hear those words and I can see the exact scene that comes from. I'm not a big fan on what I call stupid comedy, but sometimes if you can make stupid comedy funnier than just the stupidity of it, and I think that he did a pretty good job of it in that movie.
Yeah, he took a little bit from Adam Sandler's, stupid comedy type of stuff. So you kind of have to learn to love it, I guess.
But I have lots of other movies that I pull from. What my absolute favorite is The Dude, man, The Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that's another classic.
But we've been talking about bowl games today, talking about Indiana football, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that Curt Cignetti is not going to be satisfied next season going 6-6.
No.
That is not his bar.
No, I don't think he's the type of guy that comes in and says, here's our objective. It's to get to 6 wins to get to a bowl game. That's not his objective. His objective is to be in the Big Ten playoff, and anything short of that's going to be a disappointment for him. But, that's what a guy that's won at every place objective becomes, is that if you're, what's that, another Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you're last mentality. But no, I think he's a guy that, a lot of kids are going to find out a lot about it when they come back here in January, because they're going to go to that first meeting and he's going to tell them, you're going to get evaluated every day in every single way, from the weight room, academics, to everything that you do. When the eyes are on you by the coaches, when the eyes aren't on you, like in the weight room and the staff coaches have got you. And he's going to find out who's in the boat with him and who's kind of that half guy in the boat, maybe half out type of guy. And that guy's going to find out real quick that if you're not all in, son, hit the portal, because he's not going to mess around. I mean, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough winter for the returning guys that are coming back, because they're going to go through a lot of, different expectations. A lot of these James Madison guys that he brought in, I'm sure, even though they're probably their top guys at James Madison, they're going to be there to kind of, hey guys, he don't mess around. This is
bridge the gap. They are there to bridge the gap in a myriad of ways.
Right. And they're good players. Don't get me wrong. And I think that's going to be the biggest objective for those kids that are coming in. Can they be Big Ten football players? Because I know that's a lot of questions out there right now about bringing in the number of kids he has brought in from James Madison. Is the overall question, well, yeah, they were really good Sun Belt players, but are they really good Big Ten players? And I would say you defer to Coach Cignetti's eye for talent and expectations of what the Big Ten is. And he feels those kids are Big Ten players that he stole and got at James Madison. So I know they're bringing in that one big tackle, who I think is like 6'4", 5 and 300 plus pounds. So they've got a few cats that I think are going to be pretty impressive looking kids when they walk in the building. Kind of the first off the bus guys that you want to that you want the opposing team to see, like, holy crap, do you see that cat? But when they get back, that's their mindset right now, is setting the standard, what is to be expected from here through the end of spring ball.
Yeah. And not only that, it gives him a group of guys that he knows, that he trusts, that he knows, understands his system. And like you said, they are going to be mentors to all of these other guys and saying, hey, here's how it's going to be, guys. And this is the way it's going to be. But also it's that comfortability of having a group of players that he has worked with, that he has had success with. So, and what he has brought in, which has been a good mix of portal talent. He's gotten the running back from Indiana to stay. He got Donovan McCulley, which was the biggest get of all.
Right.
So now you've got a top recruit. That's a recruit that virtually anybody would have taken in the country. And so Indiana has that. Then you've added some pieces at the wide receiver spot from Texas Tech and Wake Forest. You've added some running backs as well. Your quarterbacks room is set because you've got a veteran guy, a kid from Rourke from Ohio. And then you have got guys behind him that we had Alberto Mendoza on last week. And this kid has a quarterback's mentality. He talks, thinks, acts, walks, drinks, eats like a quarterback and already. And to me, that's really impressive when you're in high school and you're talking language that is probably a year or two ahead of you. But that's what happens when you get a quarterback of that stature. This kid plays in Miami, man. He doesn't play against these tiddlywinks kids. He's a 2-time state champion. You don't win a state title in Florida without talent, without resolve. And his brother, on top of that, he followed his brother at Columbus High School there. He's a Cal as a redshirt freshman, started the last 7 games, I think, for them, beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl. I believe beat Oklahoma or Oregon State and Washington State, all teams that were ranked. And so he's got a pedigree in addition to having success behind him. So, man, I know you've got Tyler Cherry coming in, which is maybe even higher ranked, but buddy, Taven Jackson is probably thinking, hey, what about me? But his former teammate, Tyler Cherry, I think is going to end up in the quarterback battle with Alberto Mendoza for that number 2 spot next year.
Well, yeah, that quarterback room's ultra competitive, and that's what you need in that room, because you definitely got to have more than one, especially in the Big Ten. And depending on how they utilize that group, now Rourke is a drop back guy. Now he can run it, but he's more of and so is probably Mendoza, more of a true drop back guy. Now I'm not saying these guys are not mobile, because that's the one thing when you look at a quarterback outside of accuracy and arm strength is you look for mobility. But the quarterback room is going to be ultra competitive. And you got Taven and Brock Lowry, both there, that are going to have to compete all over again. Everybody's going to come in on the same keel. Now, the one thing that hurts Berto is that he's not an early enrollee like Tyler Cherry is. So he'll be behind the 8 ball a little bit. But you're right about his, I would call it his confidence is conducive to that position. He's very confident in his abilities to lead a team, and he's got the proven background of winning the state championship in the state of Florida twice at a school that has been known to put out big time recruits, and that conference that they play in down there is no slouch either. So it's a very talent rich conference with players at every position, and it'll be interesting on how he fits into Coach Signetti's offense, how he integrates into the quarterback room with Tino. I really think when Coach Signetti took the job and he knew the coaches that he was bringing along, he probably said, tell me which players at your position you want to bring with you. And everybody from Shanahan and Tino had a thought process in that, and then Brian Haynes and Pat Coons, who both were familiar with Indiana and the talent that Indiana had, especially during Kevin Wilson's era, who had some really good talented players come in there. And, they got to bowl games and stuff like that. But, that was an ultra competitive years in the latter part of his tenure there, and how they played teams. But they had an idea of those players that they brought and how they would integrate into what was there already in some respects. So I think they brought what they think are their best players and top players that can help lead and be a bridge, like you said there, Jim, and will provide a lot of continuity into what the expectations are heading into this off season and then into spring ball.
Yeah, you got a guy like Pat Kuntz as well, you just mentioned, who has Indiana roots, born in Indianapolis, played at Notre Dame. He was a defensive lineman. He's coaching the D-line. And that is just a bunch of positive things going on right there for Indiana.
Yeah. And, I mentioned Bryant, who was at Ball State, was a premier linebacker in the Mid-American Conference. He grew up and played in Ohio, which we all know about Ohio football. So those guys, both him and Pat, have that Midwest background and understand the Big Ten, what it's going to take in the Big Ten. And I think those are going to be big helps to him as well. And that's the one thing I like about his staff. They're pretty much a young staff when you look at the number of years they've got in the coaching arena, especially at the D1 level. And those guys, they have a relatability to the players that are already there. And I think they will relate well with the Indiana players. And I think those guys will also be a huge factor in bringing the Indiana guys along with the James Madison guys to create a team that will ultimately carry that mentality that Cignetti is going to want from them, that the eras of mediocrity or complacency is over. We're not here to be mediocrity in anything. And I will fight you every single day on complacency, whether it's academics, whether it's the weight room, whether it's what we expect during winter workouts or spring ball. There is no more complacency.
No, that has been something that Curt Cignetti, one of the first things he said, and I've repeated this a couple times. Tom Allen was famous for having his word of the year and whenever they would do that. That is gone. But if there was one, it would be complacency. That is Curt Cignetti. But he doesn't have to say it. He says it once, and then they just live it from there out. And I mentioned Pat Coons as we talked about him. This is a guy who played for Indianapolis Roncalli High School. Right. Like I said, played at Notre Dame. But he can help recruit Indiana kids, and that is a place where Indiana has really, really lacked, because if they're good, if they're really talented, they're going to go to Notre Dame like Pat did, or Ohio State or Michigan.
Right.
But Indiana has to turn the tide before I think the recruiting tide turns, but they can do that in a single season.
Yeah. Pat's going to be very influential in that Indianapolis area. For the talent, that is there in Indianapolis, that he will provide a bridge from there to Bloomington. Fort Wayne is becoming, up here in my neck of the woods, is becoming a very big area for recruiting, and especially in the Big Ten over the last few years.
Especially the big boys.
Yeah. You got the Mylan Graham kid out of here at New Haven, who's most recently a 5-star rating, and he's going to Ohio State. Now, I don't know if he's a 5-star. That may be because he went to Ohio State, but he's a very talented kid, again, coming out of the Fort Wayne area. And if they can pull some kids out of here, there's another big time kid up here, Brock Schott out of Leo, that I think will really relate well to a Bryant Haynes and a Pat Kuntz to try to get him. And he's got offers from about everybody. So there's no question those guys are going to help him in the state of Indiana as well as in that Ohio area as well.
No doubt. This is going to be crazy, but I think we could almost do this a segment a day talking about Indiana football. And if you would have said that, I would have said that 6 months ago, I would have said, you're out of your ever-loving mind. The fact that we're talking about IU football right now is mind-boggling, but it is fun to be able to have those options, and that's something Indiana needs. Shannon, I cannot thank you enough, man. As always, it is a blast, and I love doing it. And I look forward to doing it again. Make sure you give Shannon a follow, Shannon Griffith, especially if you're in the Fort Wayne area, but also on Hoosier Tailgate. You can find him there as well. Shannon, appreciate you, my brother.
All right, buddy. Have a good week and Happy New Year to you and John.
Happy New Year to you and your family. Appreciate you. And everybody else, thank you so much for being on board with us today. We're back tomorrow. John Boy, who do we have lined up?
We'll have Mike DeCourcy joining us tomorrow. We'll have Chris Denary. We'll have Tyler Smith, and we'll see what else we can get straightened out for you.
We got basketball, football, all kinds of things. The bowl games, we'll cover all that. But until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.